See if it works. Oops. Now we're live. Okay. All right. Sometimes you got to do it twice just to make it work. Okay. Good to see everybody. Give me a second. Let me get the guitar, and then we'll chant a little bit. And okay. Ripapendo di ancora e da sé fino a peccatina Sakalazzane una di ancora ni chiamana ispreina Sakalatsamana korete shikati Deonata yata yata Kabeda kadimo Holy namasuke Aparada goibeata Kabiheno kripa labea de jana Ritarta koibenata Shakti Buri Heken, Amiyati Ten, Kolomore Atmasata. Yogyata Vichare Kichunai Poi, Tomara Karuna Sara. Koranana Hoile, Kania Kania. Pranana Rakiva Hey Gripa Bendu dia Korowe Dase Vina Peccatina Sakalazzane Mola dia Koro Ichamane Sprearina Krishna Prastaya Buddhalai Shivadev Bhakti Vedanta Samaniki Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Guravani Shanti Seshachanya Vadiva Shachari Satane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Ratana Siva Sadi Gurmata Vrindanaya Krishna Caitanya Purnicha Nanda Shri Advaita Ratana Siva Sadi Gopata Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Haribo 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 Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shiva Sati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sayama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuram Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamaya Ki Jai Shrimati Lasadevi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prastaya Budle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namani Namaste. Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha. Shunyavadi Paschacha Deja Tarane. So we're going to continue with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We're reading from the Antya Lila, chapter 14. And chapter 14 deals with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms, his different transformations of the body, and his different feelings of separation from Krishna. Because remember, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, and he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani in Vipralamba Seva. Okay, so let us continue. So Om Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual masters, Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let's go to the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. Okay, so Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So we are reading from text 54 in the 14th chapter of the Antya Lila, detailing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic symptoms. So let's continue. Hey Dasadashaya Prabhu Vyakula Ratridine Kabu Kona Dasayute Stiranahe Mane Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed night and day by these 10 ecstatic conditions. Whenever such symptoms arose, his mind became unsteady. Eta kahi Mahaprabhu Mona Karila Ramananda Raya Shloka Padite Lagila. After speaking in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell silent. Then Ramananda Roy began to recite various verses. Swarupa Goshani Akare Krishna Lila Gana Dvijane Kachukaila Prabhura Vaya Yana. Ramananda Roy recited verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Swarup Damodar Goswami sang of Krishna's pastimes. In this way, they brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to external consciousness. E Matar Devratri Koila Nira Pana Vitara Prakochte Prabhure Karaila Shayana. After half the night had passed in this way, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar Goswami made Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lie down on his bed in the inner room. This is, of course, the Gambhira. Gambhira means very deep, but it's also the name of where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed. Ramananda Raya Tabe Gela Nijagare Sarupa Govinda Dunhe Shui Lena Dware. Then Ramananda Roy returned home, and Swarup Damodar Goswami and Govinda lay down in front of the door to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's room. In other words, to make sure he didn't get out. Sabaratri Mahaprabhu Kare Jagadana Uchakari Kahi Krishna Nama Sankirtan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained awake throughout the entire night, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra very loudly. So, oh, Krishna, Radha. Shabdana Panak Swarupa Kapata Kaila Dure Tina Dwara Deoya Yache Prabhu Nahi Gare. After some time, Swarup Damodar could no longer hear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting. When he entered the room, he found the 3 doors locked, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was gone. Wow. Chintita Haila Sabe Prabhure Na Dekiya Prabhu Chahi Bule Sabe Neuti Duhalia. All the devotees were very anxious when they saw that the Lord was not in his room. They wandered about searching for him with a warning lamp. Singu Dwarera Uttaradashaya Achi Eka Dhani Dharamachi Padiyachena Chaitanya Goshani. After searching for some time, they came upon Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lying in a corner by the northern side of the Singadwara gate. Oh my God. Deki Swarupa Goshani Ade Anandita Haila Prabhura Dasha Deki Puna Chintete Lagila. At first they were overjoyed to see him, but when they saw his condition, all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami were very anxious. Prabhupada Chena Dirga Hata Pancha Chaya Chaitanya Deha Nasaya Srasha Nahivaya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was lying unconscious, and his body had become elongated to 5 or 6 cubits. Phew. Wow. There was no breath from his nostrils. So this is obviously Mahabhav. Eka eka hasta pada dirga tina tina hata ashti granti vina charma achimatra tata hasta pada griva kati ashti sandhiyata eka eka vitasti vina hanache tata. Each of his arms and legs had become 3 cubits long. Only skin connected the separated joints. The Lord's body temperature, indicating life, was very low. All the joints in his arms, legs, and neck, waist, were separated by at least 6 inches. Wow. I mean, that is a spiritual body, because obviously, if that happened to any of us, we would be gone from this world. Charma matro pare sande ache dirga hana tukita haila sabe prabore dekiya. It appeared that only skin covered his elongated joints. Seeing the Lord's condition, all the devotees were very unhappy. Mukhe lalapena prabodhotana nayana dekhiya sakala bhaktera deyachade prana. They almost died when they saw Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu with his mouth full of saliva and foam and his eyes turned upwards. Surupa Goswami tabe ucha kariya prabodha kane Krishna nama kai bhakta ganalana. When they saw this, Rup Damodar Goswami and all the other devotees began to chant the holy name of Krishna very loudly into Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's ear. Bahukshane Krishna nama hridaye pashila Hori Bola Bali Prabhu Garjiya Utila. After they had chanted in this way for a long time, the holy name of Krishna entered the heart of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and he suddenly rose with a loud shout of Hori Bol. Chaitanya Paite Asti Sandila Gila Purva Praya Yatava Chariraha Ila. As soon as the Lord returned to external consciousness, all of his joints contracted and his entire body returned to normal. Lila Mahaprabhura Raghunatha Dasa Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vrikshe Kariyache Prakasha. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has described these pastimes elaborately in his book Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vriksha. Kvachin Mirasha Base Rajapati Sutachoru Virahat Shlatachri Chanditvad Dhadhad Adika Darigyam Bhuja Pato Lutan Bhuma Katva Vikala Vikalam Gadgadavacha Rudan Shri Gaurango Vidaya Udayan Mam Madayati. In the house of Kashi Mishra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes be greatly aggrieved. Feeling separation from Krishna, the joints of his transcendental body would slacken and his arms and legs would become elongated. Rolling on the ground, the Lord would cry out in distress in a faltering voice and weep very sorrowfully. The appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu awakening my heart maddens me. This is from the Gauranga Stava Kalpa Vriksha, number 4. Singadware deki prabodha vismayahila kanakaraki Esvarupe Puchila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished to find himself in front of the Singadwara. He asked Swarup Damodar Goswami, "Where am I? What am I doing here?" Surupakahe Uttaprabhu Chala Nijagare Tatai Damare Sabha Karimu Gochare. Swarup Damodar said, "My dear Lord, please get up. Let us go to your place. There I shall tell you everything that has happened." In other words, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wasn't aware that he had left his room and gone to the Singadwara gate. Etabali Prabhure Dari Gare Lana Gela Tadhara Vashta Saba Kahite La Gila. Thus all the devotees supporting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took him back to his residence. Then they all described to him what had happened. Shuni Mahaprabhu Bada Haila Chamatkara Prabhu Kai Kichu Smriti Nahika Amara. Hearing the description of his condition while he had lain near the Singadwara, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much astonished. He said, "I do not remember any of these things." That's transcendental madness. Sabe deke hayamora Krishna Vijamana Vidyut Praya Deka Diha Haya Antaradana. All I can remember is that I saw my Krishna, but only for an instant. He appeared before me and then, like lightning, immediately disappeared. Hena Kale Jagannathera Pani Shanka Bajila Snanakari Mahaprabhu Tarashane Gela. Just then, everyone heard the blowing of the conch shell at the Jagannath temple. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately took his bath and went to see Lord Jagannath. Eta Kahilun Prabhora Adbhuta Vikara Yahara Shavane Loke Lage Chamatkara. Thus I have described the uncommon transformations of the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When people hear about this, they are very much astonished. It proves that Lord Chaitanya does not have a material body. Loke nahi dekiyache shastre nahi shuni hena bhava yaktakare Nyase Chudamani. No one has witnessed such bodily changes elsewhere, nor has anyone read of them in the revealed scriptures, yet Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the supreme sannyasi, exhibited these ecstatic symptoms. Shastra lokatita ye bhavahaya itaralakaya ratate nahaya nishchaya. These ecstasies are not described in the Shastras, and they are inconceivable to common men. Therefore, people in general do not believe in them. Raghunatha dasera sara prabhu sange stiti tanra mukke shuni liki kariya pratiti. Raghunath Das Goswami lived continuously with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am simply recording whatever I have heard from him. Although common men do not believe in these pastimes, I believe in them totally. In other words, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was residing right next to where Raghunath Das Goswami was on the banks of the Shamakund. Ekadina Mahaprabhu samudre aite Jataka Parvata dekilena achambite. One day, while Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to the sea to bathe, he suddenly saw a sand dune named Jataka Parvata. Govardhan Shaila Gyane Avishtahaila Parvata Dishati Prabhu Dana Chalila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mistook the sand dune for Govardhan Hill and ran toward it. Hantaya Madrira Balaharir Dasa Varyo Yad Ramakrishna Charanasparasha Pramoda Manam Tanoti Sahago Ganayos Tayoryat Paniya Suyabasa Kandara Kanda Mulai. Lord Chaitanya said, of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. Oh, my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram as well as their calves, cows, and cowherd friends with all kinds of necessities, water for drinking, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respect to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Govardhan Hill appears very jubilant. This is a quotation, of course, from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 21st chapter, text 18. It was spoken by the gopis when Lord Krishna and Balaram entered the forest in the autumn. The gopis spoke among themselves and glorified Krishna and Balaram for their pastimes. Eish lokapati prabhu chalena vayu vege Govinda daila pache nahi paya lage. Reciting this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ran toward the sand dune as fast as the wind. Govinda ran after him, but could not approach him. Pukara padila maha kolahala harila yeyahan chila seutia daila. First one devotee shouted loudly, and then a tumultuous uproar arose as all the devotees stood up and began to run after the Lord, because he was running towards the sand dune, thinking it was Govardhan Hill. Surupa Jagadananda Pandita Gadadhar Ramayanandayara Pandita Shankara. Surup Damodar Goswami, Jagadananda Pandit, Gadadhara Pandit, Ramay, Nandai, Shankara Pandit are some of the devotees who ran after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Puri Bharati Goshani Aila Sindhu Tire Bhagavan Acharya Kanja Kalila Tiri Tire. Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati also went toward the beach, and Bhagavan Acharya, who was lame, followed them very slowly. Pratame Chalila Prabhu Yenach Bayu Gati Stamba Baba Pate Haila Chalite Nahi Shakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running with the speed of the wind, but he suddenly became stunned in ecstasy and lost all strength to proceed further. Pratiroma Kupe Mamsha Rajanera Kara Taropare Ramogama Kadamba Prakara. The flesh at each of his pores erupted like pimples, and his bodily hairs, standing on end, appeared like kadamba flowers. Prati Rome Prasveda Pade Rudi Ragdara Kante Gargara Nahi Barnera Chara. Blood and perspiration flowed incessantly from every pore of his body, and he could not speak a word, but simply produced a gargling sound within his throat. Dvi nitre bharyashru pahiya para samudri midila yena ganga yamuna dara. The Lord's eyes filled and overflowed with unlimited tears, like the Ganges and Yamuna meeting the sea. Vayavarne Shanka Praya Shveta Hailanga Tabi Kampa Uteyena Samudre Tadanga. His entire body faded to the color of a white conch shell, and then he began to quiver like the waves in the ocean. Kampite Kampite Prabhu Bhumete Padila Tavita Govinda Prabhora Nikate Haila. While quivering in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell down on the ground. Then Govinda approached him. Kurangera Jale Kare Sarvanga Sinchana Variyavasalana Kare Anga Samvijana. Govinda sprinkled water from a Kuranga water pot all over the Lord's body, and then taking the Lord's outer garment, he began to fan Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Surupapari Ganatan Ashiya Milila Prabhura Vashtadeki Kandite Lagila. When Sarup Damodar and the other devotees reached the spot, they saw the condition of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They began to cry. Prabhura Angedeki Ashta Satvika Vikara Ascharya Satvika Deki Haila Chamatkara. All 8 kinds of transcendental transformations were visible in the Lord's body. All the devotees were struck with wonder to see such a sight. The 8 ecstatic symptoms are the state of being stunned, perspiration, standing of the bodily hairs on end, faltering of the voice, trembling, fading of the body's color, tears, and devastation. Ucha Sankirtanakare Prabhura Shavane Sitala Chale Kare Prabhura Anga Samarjane. The devotees loudly chanted the Hare Krishna mantra near Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and washed his body with cold water. Ematabahu bara kirtana karite Haribola Wadi Prabhu Ute Achambite. After the devotees had been chanting for a long time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly stood up and shouted, Haribo! Haribo! Senande Sakala Vaishnava Bale Hari Hari Utila Mangala Dwani Chaturadik Pare. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up, all the Vaishnavas loudly chanted, Hudi Hudi, in great jubilation. The auspicious sound filled the air in all directions. Uti Mahaprabhu Vismita Iti Uti Chaya Yedikita Chaya Taha Dekite Napaya. Astonished, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood up and began looking here and there, trying to see something, but he could not catch sight of it. Vaishnava Dekiya Prabhura Arabaya Haila Surupa Goshani Re Kichu Kahite Lagila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw all the Vaishnavas, he returned to partial external consciousness and spoke to Sarup Damodar. Govardhana Haite More Kehananila Pana Krishnara Lila Dekite Napaela. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Who has brought me here from Govardhan Hill? I was seeing Lord Krishna's pastimes, but now I cannot see them. Ihan haite aji mui gena Govardhane dekon yari Krishna karena Godana charane. Today I went from here to Govardhan Hill to find out if Krishna was tending the cows there. Govardhana chari Krishna vashaila venu Govardhanera chodike chare savatenu. I saw Lord Krishna climbing Govardhan Hill and playing his flute, surrounded on all sides by grazing cows. Venu nadi shuni aila radhatakarani savasaki ganasange karya sajane. Hearing the vibration of Krishna's flute, Srimati Radharani and all her gopi friends came there to meet him. They were all very nicely dressed. Radhalana Krishna Praveshilak Kandarate Sakigana Kahimore Pula Ujjaite. When Krishna and Srimati Radharani entered a cave together, the other gopis asked me to pick some flowers. Hena Kale Tumisaba Kolahala Kaila Dahan Haite Darimore Ihan Lana Haila. Just then, all of you made a tumultuous sound and carried me from there to this place. Keneva Anila More Vrita Dukha Dite Panakrishna Lila Na Painu De Kite. Why have you brought me here, causing me unnecessary pain? I had a chance to see Krishna's pastimes, but I could not see them. Eta Bali Mahaprabhu Karena Krandana Tanradasha Deki Vaishnava Karena Rodana. Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to weep. When all the Vaishnavas saw the Lord's condition, they also wept. Hena Kale Aila Puri Varate Dvijana Dunhe Deki Mahaprabhura Ha'ila Sambrama. At that time, Paramananda Puri and Brahmananda Bharati arrived. Seeing them, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became somewhat respectful. Nipata Abhaya Haile Prabhundun Hare Vandila Mahaprabhu Re Dvijana Premalingana Kaila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to complete external consciousness and immediately offered prayers to them. Then these two elderly gentlemen both embraced the Lord with loving affection. Prabhu kahe dune kene ailaeta dore puri goshani kahe tomaran richa deki bare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Puri Goswami and Brahmananda Bharati, "Why have you two come so far?" Puri Goswami replied, "Just to see your dancing." Lajita haila Prabhu Purira vachane samudra gata aila saba Vaishnava sane. When he heard this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt somewhat ashamed. Then he went to bathe in the sea with all the Vaishnavas. Snanakari Mahaprabhu Gadate Aila Savalana Mahaprasada Bhojana Karila. After bathing in the sea, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to his residence with all the devotees. Then they all lunched on the remnants of food offered to Lord Jagannath. Eta Kahilan Prabhura Divyon Madhavava Ramao Kahite Nare Yahara Prabhava. Thus I have described the transcendental ecstatic emotions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Even Lord Brahma cannot describe their influence. Chataka Giri Gamana Lila Raghunatha Sa Gauranga Stabakapa Rikshe Kariyachena Prakasha. In his book, Gauranga Stavakapa Vriksha, Raghunath Das Goswami has very vividly described Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastime of running toward the Chataka Parvata sand dune because Raghunath Das Goswami was there. Samipe Nidresh Chataka Giri Rajasha Kalanad Aye Goshte Govardhana Giri Patim Likitum Ita Rajan Ashmit Jutwa Pramadahiva Davan Avrito Ganai Swara Gaurango Hridaya Udayan Mamadayati. Near Jagannath Puri is a great sand dune known as Chataka Parvata. Seeing that hill, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Oh, I shall go to the land of Braj to see Govardhan Hill." Then he began running madly toward it, and all the Vaishnavas ran after him. This scene awakens in my heart and maddens me. This is a verse from Raghunath Das Goswami's Gauranga Stava Kalpavriksha, number 8, which he actually perceived those pastimes. Ebe Prabhu Yata Kaila Orokika Lila Kevarnate Pare Se Mahaprabhura Kaila. Who can properly describe all the uncommon pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? They are all simply his play. Shankshepikaya Kare Dik Darashana Yehashunepaya Krishnara Charana. I have briefly described them just to give an indication of his transcendental pastimes. Nevertheless, anyone who hears this will certainly attain the shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. It looks like we're ending the chapter. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Hasha Caitanya Caritamrta Kahi Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet. So we went from 54 to the end. Of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, Antya Lila, 14th chapter, describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental ecstatic emotions and his mistaking Chataka Parvata for Govardhan Hill. So 54 to the end. So what we're going to do is just take some questions now and end early. We had a little challenge here that I have to make sure everything's working all right because one of the wells on our property went out. So anyway, just have to make sure the devotees are all right. So Vaishnava Seva. So let's just stop here, and for 5 minutes we can take 5 or 10 minutes. We can take some questions. All right. I'll unmute you all. Okay, so everybody has an opportunity to ask questions right now. Questions. Madhava, the same. You have a question.
Dandavat, yeah, Gurudev, Dandavat Pranam. So, one thing, all this description we have been reading and other days we read, I didn't see anywhere description mention name Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So, was he not there most of the time, or just I never heard him being there among all other devotees. Yeah.
That's an interesting point. It's not really described that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was there witnessing these deep pastimes, these ecstatic emotions of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I mean, I could make a guess that he was on a more awe-reverent platform. And generally, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only exhibited these with his very, very intimate devotees. So that would be my educated guess. But I did not hear about Sarva. That's a very good point. I did not hear about Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya being there during these amazing symptoms of ecstasy that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited. So, do you have another question?
No, I think I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll give the opportunity to Rakesh to ask a question.
Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances.
So, my blessings. What's up?
Gurudev, I just have a question. It's not regarding Chaitanya Charitamrita. When a person talks to themselves, who is asking the question from within, and who is answering those questions, and who
When they
is
talk to
going on?
themselves, then they're answering the questions and they're asking the questions. All right. Let's try to keep the talk to Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Krishna Priya has a question.
Gurudev, please set my obeisances. I was just thinking, like, it's just so inconceivable how Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, but then he's running after Krishna and seeing his pastimes and not knowing that he's Krishna. And I was just thinking how how amazing these pastimes are. And the other thing that I just was kind of overwhelmed with the whole thing about how if it wasn't for Srila Prabhupada, translating these books, this Caitanya Charitamrita, we would never know about this. And you were there when he was translating the Caitanya Charitamrita. So I just wanted to know if there was anything that you might want to share with the devotees that don't know about the history of Prabhupada translating this.
I probably would translate alone in his room at night. I mean, I helped produce the books, and Prabhupada demanded that we finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita in 2 months. We had 17 books behind Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said, all your composing equipment and printing equipment is useless unless you can print all these books. I mean, it's amazing symptoms, and also, not only was the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observing Krishna, but he was also observing Srimati Radharani and the gopis, even though he's in the mood, Srimati Radharani, and he's Krishna. I mean, it's amazing. Amazing pastimes. Okay, so now Rishikesh, you're the last one for today.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. I was curious when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami started writing this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Did he get the entire revelation from the Lord from within, or he took the commentary from Raghunath Das Goswami also?
He took his conversation from Raghunath Das Goswami.
Okay.
I mean, all these different pastimes, everything. Right? That's why Prabhupada quotes from Raghunath Das Goswami in this chapter. because I said that he resided right next to where Raghunath Das Goswami was. So he had first-hand information about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. And Raghunath Das Goswami also wrote some literatures about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic pastimes. So no, it's not that he just got this internal vision and saw all these things or heard hearsay about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he actually had direct information from the person, the witness to all these pastimes, because Raghunath Das Goswami resided with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world. And then Raghunath Das Goswami wanted to commit suicide because he was feeling separation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he went to Govardhan Hill, and he was intending to jump off of Govardhan Hill, commit suicide in that way. But the Goswamis of Vrindavan convinced Raghunath Das Goswami to recite Lord Chaitanya's pastimes for several hours a day. And this basically kept Raghunath Das Goswami alive and enabled Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami to hear about the pastimes and write them down for us. So that's why we're able to hear about these pastimes.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to end early because I mentioned we have a little bit of a challenge here, so I want to make sure that everybody's all right. So just a little one of our wells that went out, nothing serious. But, we have to be concerned about the Vaishnavas. Okay, thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.